Hello, my name is Don Phillips. I welcome you all to celebrate April as Fair Housing Month. I am the chairperson for the Equal Opportunity and Community Outreach Committee for the Caneo-Simi Moorpark Association of Realtors. Today, it is my pleasure to welcome the City of Thousand Oaks, our wonderful panelists, and you, the community at large. The forum today is entitled 2014 Housing Updates and Activities in the Conejo Valley. And we'll provide you all with the latest information on real estate in the Conejo Valley, available financing options in this very diverse economy and market, and insights as to near and long-term housing outlooks for everyone in the Conejo Valley. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator today, Peter Greer, past president, Caneo-Simi Moorpark Association of Realtors, and 2004 Realtor of the Year. Peter.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate that. I'm not the only Realtor of the Year and past president up here. I want to introduce our panel so everybody knows who they're actually going to be hearing from. I'm going to start all the way to my right. On my right, we have Steve Allender. He's a branch manager for Academy Mortgage. Welcome, Steve.
Actually, I'm with Wells Fargo Home Mortgage.
I just read what's on the notes. I don't do anything more than that, Steve. Okay.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
All right, boy. You know, if anybody's going to make mistakes here, it will be me. Next is Connie Reed, and as I said, there's another past president and Realtor of the Year, last year's Realtor of the Year. Is that correct, Connie?
That is correct. Thank you for having me.
Well, welcome. And then I'm going to move on to my left. I guess that's stage right, isn't it? And Rick Schroeder. Rick Schroeder is the president of Many Mansions, and I hope everybody in the Conejo Valley recognizes Many Mansions for all the wonderful things they do. And welcome, Rick. How are you?
Thank you, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Okay, very good. Continuing on down the road, Doug Tapking. Doug Tapking is the Doug, you know, I always try to get this right. I'm going to Area Housing Authority of the County of Ventura. How did I do?
Got it right for a change.
Thank you very much. And then John Prescott, all the way to my left. John is representing the City of Thousand Oaks. He is the Community Development Director. And thank you. Welcome. Thank you. I'm going to ask each panelist, and I'll start down there with you, John. You want to just tell us a little bit about you and something that you may have to contribute to the housing information on the activities in the Conejo Valley?
Sure. I'm the, as you mentioned, the Community Development Director for the City of Thousand Oaks. I've been with the city actually since 1971 and have been in the role of Director of our department since 2003. The department includes your typical city planning functions, long-range planning and development review. We also have within our department the building and safety functions, including plan check and building inspection. We have a large open space system around the city of Thousand Oaks that our department, along with the Conejo Recreation and Park District, helps administer and protect. We have within our department the functions of affordable housing and now, unfortunately, redevelopment agency dissolution. As you all know, the state of California a couple of years ago dissolved all redevelopment agencies, and that was quite a blow to the production of affordable housing. Part of our job is to administer that dissolution locally. We also, within our department, in a housing-related function, administer the city's mobile home rent control ordinance, which is beneficial to many of the people who live here in Thousand Oaks. And those are the primary functions of the department.
Thank you. I do want to ask you some questions about mobile homes shortly, so we'll come back to that. Doug Tapking, a longtime resident of the City of Thousand Oaks. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you?
Well, I'm Douglas Tapke. I'm the director for the Area Housing Authority of the County of Ventura. This marks about 43 years now of affordable housing programs that I've been dealing with. The Area Housing Authority is the largest agency dealing with affordable housing programs in the County of Ventura. And we provide rental assistance to about 3,000 families today in one form or another, all of them below 80% of the median income. The primary market is about 30%. We're a manager, we're a partner, we're a contractor. We work a great deal with City Thousand Oaks. Actually, we have had a most of our units in this city, as the city recognized a need to do affordable programs, both very low and moderate range housing. So we're pleased to be here.
Great, thank you. Rick, how are you doing?
Peter, I'm doing very well. Very well. Thank you. I'm the president of Many Mansions. I've been the president since 2002 and have been part of Many Mansions prior to that on its board of directors beginning in 1997. And I'm here to talk about the role that Many Mansions plays in the city of Thousand Oaks as an affordable housing nonprofit, the housing that we create, that we manage. We're one of the leading providers of affordable housing in Thousand Oaks and Ventura County, especially in the areas of supportive housing, housing for people that are homeless and or have a disability. So I'm happy to be here and happy to talk about the role that we play.
Rick, I don't know if you remember, but I think it was in 2002 for this same forum you were here for the first time in that capacity.
I don't quite remember that. I've been here a couple of times, but thank you for reminding me of that.
Connie Reed. Connie is a longtime realtor, a broker locally. How are you doing, Connie?
Great. Again, thank you for coming today. I have been in real estate for 40 years, actually 40 wonderful years. I have loved it. Real estate has been just a wealth of knowledge for me. And I'm here today. I've been in the capacity of broker, of manager, owner, relocation director, salesperson. I pretty much have covered the gamut of the kinds of opportunities there are in real estate. And I'm here today to give you a snapshot of what the real estate market looks like in March of and April of 2014.
Thanks, Connie. And Steve Allender with Wells Fargo. Sorry about that. Good to see you.
Perfect, fine. Thank you so much for having me. My name's Steve Allender. I'm with Wells Fargo Home Mortgage, private mortgage banking division. I've been in the mortgage industry for 25 years. I, too, have held just about every position you can hold in the mortgage production field, from processing to underwriting to originator to sales manager to area manager. I love what I do. Like I said, after 25 years, I've helped a lot of people get into homes, improve their financial situation. I just really love what I do. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Glad you're here. So, since I already teased you a little bit, I am going to go right to John and ask him about mobile homes, because they do really have an impact. There's quite a few developments in the community, and you did mention rent control in those units. Can you give us a little bit more information about mobile homes in the Conejo Valley and how they affect our market?
Yes, we have 8 mobile home parks in Thousand Oaks, and among them they have, I believe it's just a little under 1,000 units, and so that's about 2% or a little over 2% of the housing stock of the city. The total housing stock of the city is about 46,000 units, and the majority of that single-family detached, and then, of course, you have your apartments and townhouses, but about 2% of the supply is mobile homes. Back in the 1980s, the city adopted some rent control ordinances, one of which applied to mobile home parks, and that was has been in effect ever since. In 2011, the city convened under the auspices of one of the city council members, Mr. Fox, as a mediator, the representatives of the mobile home park ownership and representatives of the mobile home park tenants to craft an agreement for the rent control ordinance going forward. The city's ordinance had been, it really was one of the toughest rent control ordinances in the state. The mobile home parks in the city were under a lot of pressure from the owners. There was one park closure, the Conejo Park, which has been completed. There were 2 requests for extremely large rent increases, which were permissible under the ordinance, and a subdivision of a mobile home park. And I think everybody realized we need a long-term, enduring accommodation among the parties, so that the mobile home park owners would not feel that they were basically, their land was being expropriated. I'm putting it a little more strongly than they did, and the mobile home park tenants would have a feeling security, that we know what our rent increases are going to be, we know that they're reasonable, and we know that those are locked in place for a period of time. So that was all crafted in 2011, and the City Council adopted an ordinance to update the mobile home rent control in the summer of 2007. So far so good. I think it's really helped solve a problem there.
No, that's really interesting. I think that we don't realize in general that this was an issue and that it was resolved, I think, sounds like with a lot of work, very well. Did you know, and I know Doug Tapkins knows this, that when the Route 23 went through, they cut right through a mobile home park. Some of the remnants still exist on Greenwich Drive. But anyway, that's we'll address that to Doug. I'm going to jump over here to Rick, because we're kind of working from the bottom up, because I know that Many Mansions works with a lot of people in the affordable housing area and a lot of mobile homes, although our parks are pretty darn nice, I think. Get any input on that?
I do. Many Mansions provides affordable housing. We provide, our affordable housing are all apartment buildings. We have 8 apartment buildings in Thousand Oaks, 392 units of dedicated affordable housing. That's housing restricted to households who are low income, very low income, and for us, mostly extremely low income at the very bottom of our society. Housing is very expensive in California. California is has the third highest cost of housing in the United States. And Ventura County, believe it or not, is the 10th most expensive jurisdiction in the entire country. In Ventura County, for the average family to afford a typical 2-bedroom apartment requires them to make $28.44 an hour, $28.44. So we're definitely talking about 2 wage earners, but well above the minimum wage, or even in most wages that our population makes. So that leaves a big segment of our population out of being able to afford a typical private apartment. And that's where Many Mansions comes in. That's where our housing comes in, where we charge much more lower apartment rates. So yes, definitely mobile home parks provide one segment of that. We provide another segment, Area Housing Authority. Some private people do. But it's a market that is definitely, even the city of Thousand Oaks and the Conejo Valley, is necessary much more than what people may think.
Thank you. I want to jump back over to I'm coming over to Connie first, but I know Doug has a lot of input here. Connie, what do you think about the $28.44 an hour to afford to live here? Now, we're talking about rentals, and for realtors, we often talk about for sale. What does this market look like for people who are making $28.44 an hour?
It looks difficult. I'm actually shocked to hear that Ventura County is the 10th most expensive county in the country. I really didn't think it was quite that high, but that brings up some numbers that I'd like to share with you. Comparing prices and sales for single family and condominiums of residential condominiums and single family homes in the Conejo Valley, and specifically we're talking about the Conejo, not Ventura County, just our area. And these numbers were taken from Trend Graphics, which is a provider of information for our MLS, and this data is taken directly from our MLS. So for single-family homes, in the first quarter of 2014, there were 295 single-family homes for sale. And in the first quarter of 2013, there were 233 single-family homes for sale. So that means that there is an increase in inventory of 26%. As far as solds, in the first quarter of 2014, there were 103 sales. That means closed escrow. When I say solds, that's what I mean. And in 2013, there were 111 sales. So that's the number of sold properties is down 7.2%. The same thing is true for condominiums and townhomes. For example, In the first quarter of 2014, there were 81 townhomes and condominiums for sale in the Conejo Valley, and in 2013 there were 33. That is a huge increase in inventory. As far as the solds go, in 2014 there were 36 condos and townhomes that sold, and in 2013 there were 40. So the sales are down 10%. As far as median price goes, in March of 2013, for condominiums, the median price was $350,000, and in 3 of 2014, it was $377,000. But the particularly huge jump that occurred was in single-family homes, where in March of 2013, the price was $616,000. That's the median price. And in March of 2014, the price was $800,000. So there's been, and I don't think that bodes well for those who are making $28.44 an hour. So basically, what does this all mean? Well, obviously it means that prices have gone up and inventory has also gone up. That's sort of a strange combination of events, because usually prices go up when inventory goes down. But the fact is that 2013 was fueled by investors, and also 2012. And those investors came along for properties that were distressed, and by distressed properties, I mean ones that had been foreclosed upon and ones that were short sales, meaning that the amount owed on the property was greater than the value of the property. And so investors were coming along with all cash, and they were buying up properties that were for sale. So there were very few properties for sale, and those that were being purchased by cash buyers, i.e. investors. So that segment of the marketplace dominated, and that is the reason, I think, one of the reasons why prices rose so much. Now what we're tending towards is a more balanced market, and that's a good thing. I mean, everybody thinks it's so wonderful when prices increase 20% in a year, but it really isn't. It's not a good thing. It's not healthy. It's what happened when our bubble occurred, because prices escalated so fast and incomes could not catch up. So what's happening now is we're getting more inventory, more homes on the market, and when that happens, basic supply and demand kicks in, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see prices softening in the next 6 months, 3 to 6 months, and again, achieving a balanced market. And I don't think I've seen a really perfectly balanced market more than 4 or 5 times in my 40 years in real estate. So it would be fun to experience it.
Connie, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. I know you don't have an MLS, which is our multiple listing service, in front of you. But what would a 2-bedroom condo or townhouse sell for in the Conejo Valley right now?
Well, if we're looking at the median price.
No, just take the lowest one. What's the cheapest one you can imagine? I love putting her on the list.
Thank you so much. I would say somewhere in the high 2s.
Okay, I actually agree with you, but
thank you.
Anytime. So I'm going to take that in the high 2s, and I'm going to throw that over to Steve and say, Steve, somebody making $28.44 an hour, can they afford our low-end 2-bedroom to buy?
Thank you for the question, but the answer is yes and no. It really comes down to how fiscally prepared each customer that's purchasing that home is at that point in time in their life, meaning do they have excessive debt or not? 2 car payments at $500 a piece is the same as almost a house payment. So sometimes people get ahead of themselves. They want those great cars, and then they think, oh, really be nice to own a home or buy their step into a condominium. But then they have too much debt to qualify for that, even at $28.44. If they didn't have that debt, they would qualify with a down payment or jumping into a down payment assistance program. So double-edged sword there based on your fiscal preparedness.
Okay, thank you. Now, I want to kind of stay on the same subject, and I want to go back to Doug, because Doug, don't you have like credit counseling, things of that sort, to prepare people to be qualified for rentals and for other things?
Well, it's not a credit counseling program. We do what's called a Path to Home Ownership, and we sponsor classes throughout Ventura County. And in the Conejo area, the next one's scheduled for May the 1st. And what that does is it kind of goes through what Alan was talking about. Where are you financially? Where are you fiscally, et cetera? I mean, when lenders are looking at ratios of, I think it's about 45% debt ratios, things like that, once they start to get in that range, it doesn't matter how much money you're making, you're probably not going to be able to qualify, because in order to sell it to Fannie Mae or Freddie or whoever else it's got to go through, they're kind of clamping down. But that's a fair statement, Alan?
Yeah, that is a fair statement. You know, they've put in guidelines that state you really shouldn't exceed 43. There has been a moratorium for the next 7 years put on that, but it's really at lenders' discretion, and most lenders are following suit with Dodd-Frank and the CFPB and falling in line with that 43, and they will go to 45, and on some FHA loans, based on the factors of the transaction and that client, they will go up above 45, but you have to have some strong compensating factors such as good reserves in the bank after.
Yeah, that's kind of the information we're seeing, and we're not a regular lender or a home buying service, but part of our job is to prepare those individuals that are in the low-income area for home ownership if it's going to be available. And we put together programs in the Path, self-sufficiency programs, in order to do that type of thing, and some have been successful and some have not. But in the Conejo Valley, it becomes very difficult because of the pricing at $377,000 and $228 an hour, et cetera. The numbers many times don't mix with, as Alan was just talking about, the younger populations then are forced back into the rental market, and the rental market has been pretty hot. It's been increasing for a number of years. It's stabilizing a little bit now, but two-bedroom, two-bath rents in the neighborhood of $1,650 to $1,800 are not uncommon, with about $1,600 being the average at this particular point. So that's what you wind up looking at, and with our millennial generation, many of whom are still, unemployed in our area, they're still falling back on mom and dad and living at home, in many cases kind of waiting to find something that's going on. And they may not find it in the Conejo Valley anymore.
Thanks. I'm going to go over here to John, because I mean, you're looking at things coming down the road too, aren't you? Within potential developments, do we have anything in the affordable? Maybe I should say entry-level housing.
Well, there's a one-word answer to that, and unfortunately, it's no. Thousand Oaks is a fairly built-out community. Years ago, we were one of the fastest-growing cities in the state. We're now at the top of the S-curve and pretty much flattening out. I would say that we are on the order of 96-97% built out in terms of residential capacity. So we're not seeing any significant standalone single-family homes, not that those would be affordable at the bottom end of the range, but there is some interest in apartment construction, townhouse construction, mainly within our recently adopted Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan. About 2 years ago, 2.5 now, the city adopted a specific plan for the Thousand Oaks Boulevard area that permitted mixed use. It also permitted some standalone residential in properties that previously had been zoned only for commercial development. We're starting to see some interest. However, the plan does have parameters regarding the maximum number of dwelling units that can be permitted, and it's a fairly small number right now. There are some requests pending before the city to raise that number a little bit, but it's still, we're talking maybe hundreds of units over a period of years based on the current plan. So it, unfortunately, I don't think will make a very significant difference in addressing that problem.
I had been consulting with somebody who's a property owner along the boulevard, and he had very positive feedback from the city on doing mixed-use development, and really did pencil out very well. I don't know that he's going to do it immediately, but I think it's a great idea. Is there anything else going on in the Boulevard, John?
Well, it's interesting you brought up the mixed use, and just to kind of elaborate a little bit on what I just said, there have been 2 residential projects already approved within the Boulevard area. Both were apartment projects. One was 4 units, the other was 36 units. So again, those are important, but they're small. We are now there's recently been a filing of an actual mixed use project with some commercial on the ground floor and apartments above. That project, I believe, is on the order of around 50 units. So that, again, they're pretty much in the pre-filing stage right now, but there's absolutely a lot of interest in the Boulevard, a lot of residential interest that hasn't translated into projects being filed, some mixed use. You've seen a lot of renovations of older shopping centers up and down the Boulevard. So it's really an exciting time, and I think it will become more exciting as we go forward.
I think it'll add a lot of character to a city that already has a lot of character. Doug, you're ready to go on this. I can see it.
Well, this morning I participated in the economic forecast that was done by the the Greater Conejo Valley Chamber of Commerce. And one of the things that they referred to at that particular point is the Conejo Valley is now referred to as the land of super zips. And a super zip is an area in which at least 90%, and our area happens to be 93%, of the individuals who are residing in the area are at roughly 90%, meaning they are high wage earners, they are the highest educated, and they have equity to live in the homes. They are not small families. They are not starter homes. And that echoes what John is talking about, that the people are going to be able to purchase and buy are not going to be our lower income families. So programs then like Rick and I do become very important to balance out some of that, because you got to have this balance within your community of higher income, moderate incomes, and lower income individuals. But when they started pointing out that the population growth for a number of years in the state of California and in our area literally doubled over a 10-year period of time, we were really surprised to hear some of those numbers, as well as what the wage earning factor is in the Conejo Valley area. So that's good news and bad news. The good news is that we're there. The bad news is there's not a whole lot of jobs coming up, and in the Conejo Valley, or Thousand Oaks specifically, there's not a whole lot of homes being built or developed because of the build out. So we're going to see this mixed use development, which is wonderful. It'll bring character to characters. And we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, thanks. Rick, how does this affect what Many Mansions is doing? I know you're really trying. How does this kind of development on the Boulevard affect you? Does it?
Well, I think it does, and I think it's a very positive development. I think what we need to do is to produce more housing, especially in the area of senior housing. Our population in Thousand Oaks may not be growing, but it's growing older. And the city's housing element report that they issued last year shows that the average age continues to rise every year and will continue as the baby boomers age. And yet we have very little dedicated senior housing and very little dedicated affordable senior housing. I think, as some of you know, Many Mansions had plans last year to develop an 80-unit senior housing complex, affordable senior housing complex, that we had to withdraw because of community opposition. So we're kind of looking at different sites for that, but mixing that type of development on the Boulevard, I think is a very good prospect, because senior housing does lend itself to being interspersed in mixed-use developments where things are close by, things are within walking distance, services, retail, medical. So I think it's a very positive development because right now it's very difficult to find really any large sites to develop housing. So it's a positive development.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to have someplace on the Boulevard for my mother-in-law to live on, preferably a fast lane. Connie, how are you? As we're looking at this and we're talking about the affordable housing, and I know you not only are a real estate agent and a broker, realtor, but you're involved in the community. What do you see that the realtor community has to do with affordable housing. Is it our fault the prices went up, or what is it?
It's your fault. The prices have gone up because we live in paradise. I mean, that's pretty basic. This is an absolutely fabulous place to live. We've got great weather. I don't need to be the Chamber of Commerce here because you all live here and you all love it. So, no, I don't think this is the one time I don't think we can blame the real estate community, and I don't think we can blame the lenders. So I think it's just the nature of where we live.
Okay, then let's see if we can blame the lender. How you doing, Steve? What do we have in the way of loans for people in the low end, not the jumbos?
Sure. Well, one of the things I want to point out really quickly here is that people have to understand that interest rates back in May of last year jumped a full 1%. They went from a low of 3.25% to 4.25%, and they've stayed in that 4.5% to 4.75% range since then. And what that 1% jump in interest rate does to a client who's wanting to buy their first home or even move up to their second home because their family's growing, it really limits what they can afford. And, if I can stress anything enough to the audience is to really talk to a lender, find out what you're qualified for, make sure you're fiscally prepared to go after that home, whatever level you're buying at. And when you do that, good things happen and you get good results. In regards to, getting in on the lower end, there's great down payment assistance programs that are grants. They are income restricted, they're area restricted, and it's just a matter of getting, again, with a lender, letting them evaluate your current situation, walk you through the path of home ownership, and really make sure you're getting the right education on what you need to know when it comes to the mortgage and buying a home. Because it's not just as easy as getting into a house. Sometimes that can be the easy part. The hard part is maintaining the home, the extra expenses that come along with the home, and really being prepared for that. So I stress a little bit of financial planning when it comes to qualifying my clients because it's so important beyond just that first house payment.
Thank you. As you bring that up, Doug was talking about that program they had going before as far as being prepared. Doug, you want to expand on that? Or
yeah, it's really easy to become house poor, which is what you're talking about. The house payments are so much you can't afford to do anything else. And yet, as we just discussed, there are programs that are out there, and I brought some information. There's a mortgage credit certificate program. There's the extra credit teacher program for teachers, obviously. Very specifically, the California Homebuyers Down Payment Assistance Program and the CalPlus with ZIP. Now, all of these are income qualified programs. They're all funded through the California Housing Finance Agency. But you have to access them through two areas, a realtor and a lender. And you have to have a realtor who is willing to work within the parameters of the program because they are income qualified. And you have to work with a lender, as Alan pointed out, that will understand these particular programs or work through it, because it's a lot of additional paperwork to go through in many cases. But at least these are 4 additional tools that are available for our affordable populations. Now, affordable in this particular case does not necessarily mean the 30% income. It means our working class families. So those people that are making in that $20 to $30 range, in many cases, are going to qualify for these types of things. But they need to be looked into, and they're available on the California Housing Financing Authority's website. They're also available if you go to your lender or to your realtor and say, hey, tell me about this. Their job, obviously, is to help you find where that's coming from, because they don't all know about it, or they don't all work with it, and I don't think they're not interested in not doing a sale, so they want to help you to get into something, okay?
Oh, yes.
Peter, can I add to that real
sure,
quick?
Sure, please do.
Excuse me. So one of the things in Ventura County, because we are a higher-end living community, is that those income restriction levels do go up to, in some areas, $109,000 of family income. And a lot of the income is based on the number of family members that are going to live under that roof. So just because it's a down payment assistance program and it has income restrictions, please don't think that you shouldn't pick up the phone, call your lender. Just to put a plug for the company, Wells Fargo, we support all of the down payment assistance programs, and we're there to help you because we do care.
All right, thanks. I'm going to go back to Rick about, do you have any, I love that. I get to do this. I just shock them. Rick, any projects that Many Mansions has in the works or that might be you're thinking of targeting?
Well, Peter, unfortunately, I'd have to say no. We are working on a project in Simi Valley that will be dedicated to chronically homeless families, families that have been homeless for more than a year. You know, much of our housing lately has been restricted to those that are homeless and that have a disability, and indeed our homeless population in Thousand Oaks has increased, according to our latest homeless account. But in terms of affordable housing projects right here in the Conejo Valley in Thousand Oaks, currently we do not have any plans.
Well, maybe somebody out there has some ideas and they could help you. Would that be nice? That would be a good idea. We're kind of going back and forth between, as you can see, we're talking about housing in the Conejo Valley, and we're going back and forth a little bit between home ownership and tenant-occupied properties. It's all housing. It's all where we live.
If I could just add, Peter, to complete a thought, although we don't have any new projects, much of our effort for the last year and going into this year is focusing on our existing properties. You know, our existing affordable housing properties, we want to make sure that they serve the community for a number of years. 20, 30, 40, 50 years, so they're there as a community resource. So we've been concentrating on rehabilitating them, getting the funding to do that, to make them more energy efficient, to save water, use solar or electricity, things like that, so that we can keep the costs down, keep the rents down, but also keep the quality of the housing up for a number of years, again, to serve the community. So we've kind of shifted to preserving and enhancing our existing properties, but we are still looking for new projects. So yes, if there's someone out there, please let me know.
May I ask a question? The project that was abandoned because of the objections from the residents, what's going to happen to that? Is that the one on Hillcrest?
Yeah, that was a planned senior project on Hillcrest, right beyond Herbs. It's the land was sold to another developer, and my understanding is that they're going to be building single-family homes at some point.
Which Connie and I are both realtors, advocates of private property rights. So at the same time, we would like to see affordable housing. It kind of puts us in a little bind there, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay. From the city standpoint, has the city targeted anything? I don't want to spend all night on the affordable housing, but has the city targeted anything other than the Boulevard mixed-use projects?
No, the city's actual role historically has been to help the affordable housing providers, Many Mansions and the Area Housing Authority of the County of Ventura, to do projects here in Thousand Oaks. And sometimes those projects, I think in all of your cases, Doug, has been new construction with Many Mansions. Some of the projects have been acquisition of apartments, although I think we did one for you. Yeah, where we acquire, our partner would acquire an older, deteriorating apartment project and then rehab it. And I do want to compliment both of these agencies on their management approach to their properties. We have had apartment projects that were not well managed, and then when they were taken over with assistance from our former redevelopment agency by one of our partners, they became excellent places to live. The problems that had occurred in the past went away. So that's I think a real compliment to both of them. But at this point in time, that our primary funding for affordable housing was the redevelopment agency, several $1 million a year. That is now gone. We do have a couple of smaller residual funds, affordable housing funds. One is our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and then another is a kind of a successor to the Redevelopment Agency Housing Fund, and that one has more strings attached to it for money that we might lend out or grant out. We have used our Affordable Housing Trust Fund very recently to help the Area Housing Authority make possible phase 2 of the Los Feliz project, which is now under construction with $1 million loan. And we were able to leverage that with $1 million of a state grant, so $2 million for the price of $1 million. And wherever we can find those kinds of opportunities, that would be a good use of our Affordable Housing Trust Fund money. But the balance in that fund is pretty low. The balance in the other more restricted redevelopment successor fund is also pretty low. So we won't be able to help as much as we have in the past, and we'll have to be pretty selective about how we use that money.
And from my own standpoint, I have to tell you, the cities, I really like the way that you work with Many Mansions and with the Housing Authority of the County of Ventura. That's a partnership that I think is beneficial to us all. Rick, I did want to ask you, how many doors or how many units do you think, or do you know, that Many Mansions is actually representing?
We have 500 units countywide, and we have 392 units in the city of Thousand Oaks.
It's a pretty good number. Doug, I'm going to ask you a similar question, although it doesn't quite pertain, because I know that you also don't you do Section 8 housing also? How many maybe properties do you represent, or maybe tenants represent?
Well, let's talk about that on both sides there. First off, the Housing Authority owns around 400 units in the city of Thousand Oaks. We'll add another 53 by the end of the year. We provide an additional 500 round numbers of Section 8 within the city of Thousand Oaks for almost 900 families that are receiving some type of assistance. We own $35 million worth of properties. We'll add another $10 million by the end of the year. We put into this community $6 million in subsidy every year. Part of that goes to Many Mansions to help part of theirs, and part of this a direct subsidy to owners like you that are out there. Roughly half of that goes into senior housing. The other part of it goes into family housing. And so we're looking at and we cross the board on types of housing, from single-family homes that are out for rentals to multifamily complexes. The city has been a partner all the way through on this, and that RDA money will be sorely missed because the requirements from the state in order to do various types of housing have not diminished. In fact, they've increased, and they've become much more specialized. And some of what Rick has been doing in the special needs housing has fortunately stepped up, but that becomes a very limited area when you can't get additional funding. With the city of Thousand Oaks now opening up some opportunities on the boulevard for mixed-use housing, this will change again. So the Area Housing Authority will continue to look in those areas. Many Mansions will continue to look in those areas also. But the properties are probably going to be smaller than what they were in the past. A developer on a private basis typically is looking for 100 units on a site. It becomes a question of synergy, and it becomes a question of what's the cost, et cetera. Sometimes they'll drop down below that depending upon the actual costs. An agency like the Area Housing Authority, we've typically done properties in the range of 50 units or below. And today that number is now about 20 to 24, simply because you can't get the funding that we need in order to make a property affordable. And when a property becomes affordable, whether it's a public group like what we do or what a private organization does, it requires layering of funding. There's private equity, there's public equity, there's loans, there's grants. One of the properties that John was referring to had 13 layers of funding in it. 13 different funding sources in order to bring that into an affordable level. The lowest one that I've personally been involved in happens to be in the city of Thousand Oaks, and we had 3. We had a loan from a lender, we had equity from the Area Housing Authority, and we had a grant from the city. And today you don't get grants, you get loans. So those come back, and so those have to be figured into your cash flow on that basis. But out of 3,000 units, we've got roughly 900 in the city of Thousand Oaks. So that's a pretty good ratio, quite frankly, and it's commendable because when you add what we do as the Area Housing Authority, additionally, with the 300 roughly that the mini mansions deals with, you have 12 to 1,300 quote affordable units that we know about. There are others that are out there that private landlords are doing without our assistance, and those are harder to factor into the equation, but approximately half, and the need for more, because as I think Rick and Alan, et cetera, Connie, you've identified, the population is getting older. It's not getting younger.
I have to tell you, both every time I talk to you, Doug, and to Rick, it absolutely amazes me how much you do and how much you have to go through to make housing available to people. So I appreciate that, and I think an awful lot of people do. I'm going to jump over here again to Connie. Connie, when you're thinking in the realms of home purchases, and somebody comes to you and they have, say, a student loan, then they just want to buy newly married, they have a kid on the way, and what do you look at for them, for having them find a place to live in the Conejo Valley?
I think that's a great question. I appreciate your asking that question. Sometimes families can't live in the Conejo Valley, so I look elsewhere. I think it's wonderful that these agencies, Doug, and the things that you do, that you don't just throw up your hands and say, well, paradise isn't cheap. Go find some other place to live. I think it's absolutely remarkable. I wonder if communities like Santa Barbara and Malibu and Beverly Hills are doing the same, putting forth the same kinds of efforts to have affordable housing. I think it's remarkable.
No, they're not.
No, they're not. They're saying basically paradise isn't cheap. And I think that we can, I love that we are trying the way we are to have affordable housing in the Conejo Valley. But sometimes you need to be honest with someone and say, based on your income, the Conejo Valley isn't going to work. 10 or 15 years ago, I worked with transferees almost exclusively, and these were people who were coming from Detroit and other places in the country where properties were much, much less expensive. And so they'd come out to the Conejo Valley and they'd look at properties in Thousand Oaks and say, are you kidding? And so we found other communities. We found Wood Ranch, which at the time, this was many 20 years ago, which at the time was developing and is a fabulous place to live. So there are other areas and other pockets and other communities that are lovely communities. And so what I do is I try to introduce these people to other communities that are more affordable. And it works.
It does kind of present a little bit of a dilemma, because that would mean that some people who would be really good, great contributors to our community, may have to move elsewhere. I'm fortunate enough to have my son and his girlfriend moving in with us pretty soon from up north. Both college graduate, both master's degrees, and they're going to be looking for new employment down here. I think they'll do very well in the long run, but I'm very excited about it. So I'm sorry about that, guys. You don't get them. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the loans at this end. Again, I know we hear FHA, VA. We hear a lot about that. I know that, Steve, you're involved with all kinds of loans, but I'm going to go with that same scenario of that person moving into the community or coming and talking to Connie, and Connie's going to say, well, you really can't afford here. What can they afford? Where can they go at that kind of a very, very low entry level as far as loans? What are they going to be able to have to pay or something?
Are you asking me?
So,
I'm asking Steve.
So you're looking for specifics on down payment requirements?
Yes.
Just to kind of break it down, when you're talking about an FHA loan, it requires 3.5% down. If you fall within the ability to get a grant through one of the down payment assistance programs, in many cases you only have to come up with 0.5%. So that's pretty exciting right there. That's opening doors that people might not be able to get in without. When you go to a conventional loan, you can get in with 3% down. If you're a veteran, disabled veteran, as long as you left the military under honorable circumstances, you qualify for 100% down payment to the county medium in Ventura County. That's $598,000. beyond that, you start getting into other programs that require larger down payments, such as the jumbo market, where you're looking at a 20% down payment from there. Did that cover all your bases?
Well, I guess so. I'm waiting for you to say, no, there's a loan for everybody or something like that, and then try to figure out a way to get them in. Of course, maybe that was the problem we had with loans. Maybe there used to be a loan for everybody, and that created some problems.
Well, one of the things that I've always done in my career is, again, take that financial planning approach with my clients and really sitting down with them to find out what they qualify for today. If they don't qualify for something today, you don't just send them on the road. And say, do this, do that. You really sit down with them, help them put a budget together, help them put it on their list of what's important to them. And then, as you know, you can only lead the horse to water. You can't make them drink it. So when you help people put a budget in place and make this a priority, it's up to them to really do the things that are necessary, whether that's curbing their spending, focusing on paying off debts, focusing on saving, or a combination of all three, and then checking in with them on a regular basis to see how they're doing and staying on that track. And if you can do that with clients, I've stayed with clients for 2 years to help them get into a home because it's the right thing to do. It was important to them. They were committed to it, and I was going to commit my time to them as well. So again, it's just really sitting down, being evaluated from A to B to understand the lending guidelines that are in effect today, which are nothing like they were 5 to 10 years ago. We really are back to old school lending where you have to show the ability to repay. You can't exceed a certain debt-to-income ratio. You cannot do stated income loans anymore because they don't fall within the Dodd-Frank guidelines of showing the ability to repay. So we take all these new laws and regulations into account and help you fit into that box that you need to fit in today.
Just because it's been brought up so many times, I am going to go back and ask Doug if he can reiterate the program that they were spearheading. I think it's an important program. I just want to make sure everybody kind of gets it. Also, when you were talking about the 3.5% to 4.5%, that's like a 23% increase, but still at 4.5%, that's a very good loan.
No, it's a fabulous loan. And if you look historically over time, we're still at 70-year lows. But just to the point, when we go to, and rates are going to increase over time as they pull back on the quantitative easing that they've been doing, which is all the bond purchasing. And it's really just, making sure that you're getting in when you can right now if owning a home is important to you. Because when the rates go to 5.5%, you just lost about $30,000 to $50,000 of qualifying power. So it's a big deal. And as prices they've gone up about 20% or so, I think we all conclude over the last 12 to 18 months. And they should soften a little bit, as Connie was saying. And now is a great time to really, get into homes before we get that next spike up in prices.
Doug, did you prepared for this?
Yeah, I think let's just kind of go over this one more time. The program is the Home Buying School. That's what it's called, A Path to Home Ownership. And much of what Alan's talking about, planning and budgeting to determine what you can afford, utilizing a safe, responsible loan options, an apples-to-apples comparison of 5 years of rent to 5 years of payment of mortgage using market rate and real-life examples. You have to know what's going on in that situation. They'll fill you in on what the state, the city programs, if any assistance programs, FHA, CalHA, et cetera, what are the benefits of home ownership, tax benefits, et cetera? What are the downsides of home ownership? Maintenance. Can you really afford to be into it? And then a critical element, as we were talking about before, understanding the Housing Reform Act of 2008. And it really is. It's one of those crazy things that we as individuals have to understand anymore. And then the last part is understanding and improving your credit. Just because you think your FICO score is this, it may not apply to the appropriate areas. I mean, I didn't realize that there were different FICO scores depending upon whether you were buying a car, a house, a boat, whatever. And how you can go about making your credit look much better than what it is. Some of it's very simple and some of it's very complicated, and they'll walk you through it and help you find a path. So it's worth doing.
I'm going to go back to Steve and ask him about that, but I did notice that when they ran my FICO score for buying a boat, it was a lot higher than for me to get a mortgage. Is this true?
Yeah, that's how it works in the finance world. Every company is required to set certain algorithms to the credit score modeling. And whether it's a credit card, an automobile, a house, those algorithms are taken into account to come up with that score. So when people, you hear all the stuff about go get your free credit report and get your free credit score, or sign up for this service and we'll give you your credit score at the end of each month. Well, that credit score is really based on what algorithms they ran. So it's not particularly your credit score for anything you're purchasing. It's just a random credit score. So just on average, when I see someone say, oh, I have a 720 credit score, when they come to get a home mortgage and we run all 3 credit bureaus and we run all these different algorithms that are already in place, that credit score is usually 20 to 30 points lower on a mortgage credit report than it is for almost anything else. And people need to know that and understand that. And, understanding what makes up your credit score is huge. A lot of it comes down to how much revolving debt is available to you. If you have revolving debt, let's just say a line of credit card that has a $10,000 line on it, the typical number that starts taking away from your credit score is when you're over 30% of that line. So if your balance exceeds $3,000, it starts knocking down your credit score. And the higher that percentage goes up, the lower your score goes. So that's just one little piece of credit scoring, but that's one of the biggest pieces that will help clients get in a position to purchase a home, is by getting that revolving credit down. If you can't get it to 30, get it below 50, because that's another cutoff point. And it's just, again, being educated and understanding what you need to do, because I've been doing this for 25 years, and I've spent really the last 5 years spending more time educating clients on mortgages, the process, what to expect, the unexpected from the lender, meaning if we think we need an explanation for it, we're going to get an explanation for it. If that's a $50 deposit that's outside of a regular payroll deposit, we'll ask for a letter of explanation. That's not every lender. That's, different segments of lending. But just to give you an idea, we do ask for everything to be explained and your next port.
Peter, could I
Yeah,
ask?
please do.
Yeah, could I ask Steve a question? Sure. For our low-income residents who may be in a position, and we don't have this so much as we used to, but sometimes they're living with us and they're trying to save money to eventually buy a house,
Sure.
to get a loan. What are some things, you were just mentioning some things that they should do to help their credit score. What are some other considerations that they should have and other activities? I mean,
Sure.
Should they have credit cards? Some of them stay away from credit cards. Others have too many credit cards.
It's a multi-pronged answer, so I'm just going to start with income. First, you want to make sure your income is stable. If you're not sure that you're going to be at your position for a good while, your probability of continuing that employment isn't really strong, buying a home might not be the best thing for you at that point in time. If you know, hey, I'm in the type of job that if I left this job, I can easily get another job because of my degrees, my background, my reputation, that's a whole nother, situation. And then you get into savings. Are you prepared for the down payment? Are you prepared for the maintenance that comes with owning that home? And a lot of times people just don't do that. And so you really have to put yourself on a budget when you're getting ready to prepare to buy. You have to know how much you can save each month without putting yourself to where you're eating, bread and water. It has to be realistic. So you might want to buy a home today, and it might be 6 months, it might be 12 months, it might be 2 years till realistically you can do it. But if you have your eye on the prize, you can get there. And if you're working with someone that'll help you through the process and educate you, you'll get there. It might take some persistence. Some people take on second jobs for a short period of time to generate more savings so they can get in a home quicker. A lot of things they can do. A lot of the home loans out there allow for gifts from family members, so we're seeing a lot of that. And an FHA loan, you can get the entire down payment as a gift from a family member. On a conventional loan, you can get a gift as long as you have at least 5% of your own funds. So there's so many different guidelines and so many different programs that are out there. Again, you just really have to get with a mortgage professional that you trust, that's been referred to you. that you know that has the experience, because someone who's been in this market for 3 years, honestly, is going to have a lot less knowledge to share with you and educate you than someone who's been at it for 15 or 20 years who's seen different markets. It really pays to work with somebody that understands different markets, the flow of the markets, and has gone through a few of these markets. I really think it benefits them.
Thank you. I just wanted a quick story, and anybody who's watched these forums before may have heard this story, but you can transition from many mansions into a house in Thousand Oaks. And the story I want to tell you is we were doing Christmas shopping for families with a friend of mine who's a very successful real estate agent in her brand new Lexus, and we went by one of the many mansions projects, and she said, well, this is where we used to live. And a success story, and I wish she's in the room because I'd embarrass her, but she isn't, and I don't want to embarrass her without her face-to-face being able to throw something at me. Anyway, thank you. I want to go a little bit more about the housing element, what's going on in the city, because the city of Thousand Oaks, and having been a builder here and a realtor here, is a lot. And my present position and my present job, I have the opportunity to work with different cities all over Southern California and all the way up to Sacramento right now, as a matter of fact. And they are nothing near what the city of Thousand Oaks does for us. So would you mind giving us a little bit of a heads up on why this is such a great city? What have they done in the past, and what are they going to be doing in the future?
Well, thank you for the compliment. The city of Thousand Oaks has always had a commitment to affordable housing as part of the housing stock here. One of the core concepts of our general plan was to become a balanced community, and that meant not only a balance among different kinds of land uses, but within the land use classification of residential, we wanted to have a balance of different housing types and serve different income levels. Obviously, in Paradise and with the high valuations, particularly land valuations, it's difficult to make affordable housing projects come to pass. But we have made it a priority. When we had the redevelopment agency, we had a steady and very significant source of funding. Many cities, all cities who had redevelopment agencies had that same obligation to set aside 20% of the tax increment revenue for affordable housing. Many cities throughout the state actually got in trouble with the state because they didn't spend it. They did not allocate that to specific projects, and it just sat there and earned interest and was not being used for the purpose for which it was intended. In Thousand Oaks, we made it a priority to get that money spent, and we were fortunate to have two partners that were, I think, very proactive and aggressive in identifying opportunities and sharing those opportunities with us so that we could be of assistance. Two new projects we have just seen built, and they were kind of the last with redevelopment money. The Hillcrest Villas project that Mini Mansion opened just about a year ago. I think it was last April, and the one that's another exciting project under construction on Los Feliz now that Doug's people are building. It's a different architectural style. I've had a tour, and my impression of it was walking through the buildings with the units. It was like walking in a small, cohesive neighborhood. The scale is very human and pedestrian scale, and the units are very nice in both cases. And in the Mini Mansions case, they have a wonderful community building and a green where people can gather. So we're real proud of those projects, and hopefully at some point in the future we'll be able to do some more.
You know, I was really serious about this. It is something to be we should all be very proud of that as far as housing goes in our community, we're very lucky. I do know that it's expensive to live here. I've been here for 35 years. And it's been an enjoyable time, raised my children here. And hopefully they'll be coming. Well, actually, one of them's still here, thank goodness. And the other one is coming back to Roos. I'm very excited. Okay, I'm going too far on that. Connie, the market. What you did mention it briefly about what was going up and what was going down and the impact that investors have had on our market. Do you see that impact going away? And can you give us your take on what the future of housing, resale, market housing in Conejo Valley is?
Well, I have my crystal ball right here, so I'm going to rub it a couple of times. As I said, I see a more balanced market coming in our future. We have an increase of inventory. That means more houses to sell. We have a little bit of a bump in the interest rate, so that's going to mean people can buy a little less. However, I think the investors will not play a big impact on our marketplace, and that will allow buyers to now come into the marketplace and buy homes. I still think that there is a pent-up demand from those who couldn't buy houses in the last big wave. I think that we are going to see a softening of prices. That's not a bad thing. That also contributes to a balanced marketplace. I see it very positively in the next 6 months to a year, even though there might be fewer sales. There are fewer sales now, as we've said, than there was a year ago, but I see that balancing out. I see an optimistic next year or so.
Well, okay. I like that. And I think that from the standpoint of the city, is this good news or is it just business as usual?
Well, speaking not just as a city official, but as a parent of a millennial and other children who recently did buy a small condominium, and they're hoping to move up to a regular, not regular, but a single family home with more space. The condominium there is pretty small, so you like to see housing prices that are affordable to the full demographic spectrum. You can have a situation where people, especially with the property tax laws in California, they buy a house and they keep staying there because it becomes too expensive to move when they sell the house. So it's good to have those older houses that were built in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s with 3, 4, 5 bedrooms now be populated by, young families with children, and that helps the community maintain its balance over time. So I think you want housing not to be a speculative commodity. You want it to reflect true value and to be affordable to the full range of the marketplace.
You mentioned the demographics. I'm going to put this on all three of you. What are the demographics of the Conejo Valley as far as age and incomes, whatever? What are the specifics?
Well, I can comment to some degree on that, and in fact, I hope I'm going to put a plug in for, I think you're probably all aware of it, but the city is undertaking a visioning process for the next 50 years. The city's 50th anniversary of our incorporation is on October 7th this year, and part of the it's part celebration, but it's also part looking ahead to the next 50 years. So the city has organized a series of visioning forums that will be taking place. The first ones were held on April 1st. The next ones are coming up on May 6th. Housing is actually going to be one of the topics discussed on May 6th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the city's Municipal Service Center at the end of Rancho Conejo Boulevard. But these groups will be meeting. There's one focused on infrastructure, and that does include housing. Another one focused on municipal services, another one focused on economy and financial, another one focused on the environment, and the fifth one focused on civic engagement and community, which involves seniors and youth. And that's the group that I'm part of the staff support to. Each is headed by a council member. And one of the demographic trends that everybody is taking note of is basically the aging of the Conejo Valley population. And it's partly because, once you live here, especially if you've grown up here, you don't want to leave. And the children have to leave, and it's hard for them to come back, in part because of housing prices, in part because of employment opportunities, and for other reasons. So society, I think the United States society as a whole is older than it was 10 years ago and than it was 20 years ago. So there's a kind of a national trend, but I think it's accentuated a bit here in the Thousand Oaks area. And I think the other demographic trend is we're getting a little bit more diverse in terms of racial makeup, et cetera, than we were in the past.
Along the same lines, what we were told again this morning at the economic forecast was we're becoming a older population, very clearly. We're becoming a higher income population, very clearly along that line. And as a result, by becoming higher income, we're not as economically friendly to our working younger families. And what we're seeing is those younger families, in many cases, moving away, living somewhere else where they can afford to buy a house, where they can get a job. And then families may or may not leave the Conejo Valley because they wish to be closer to their grandchildren. And so when that opens up, it opens up a home along the line of what John's talking about, and somebody else can move in. There is some concern about whether or not we're going to have just simply an aging population that is richer. It appears that the populations that are the service industries are probably the growing areas. I mean, senior citizens, rich senior citizens, can afford to have a lot of things done that other people simply cannot afford to have done. And in California, we're seeing more of that, and that's generally been defined as this coastal region that we live in, of which Conejo Valley is a part of.
Rick, same question, I guess.
Yeah, a couple of comments. I would commend everyone to watch or to look at the city's website for their housing element report because they have a number of statistics and demographic information. And what that shows is, as everyone has been saying, is that the population is aging. Yet the housing stock that we have in the city of Thousand Oaks is overwhelmingly single-family homes, single-family detached homes on large lots. And there's an imbalance between the single-family homes and apartments. And so I'm kind of glad to hear that there's some new construction of apartments in the community. You know, for many years, the last 10 years, really the only two people that were building apartments were Many Mansions and the Area Housing Authority. And that leads to an imbalance because people should have choices, and you need choices of the type of housing and the price range as well. But we need more apartments, we need more assisted living, we need more flexibility in density. If I were here in 2002, I probably mentioned that the community should be looking at higher density in housing. And I don't think we've made sufficient progress in that because this is a very undense community. And yet we always complain about the lack of building space available. But in fact, there is quite a bit of space available if we would just increase the density. So that's something that the community really should be considering as well.
Peter, I want to go back on part of that a second also and pick up on what Rick was talking about along with that. I've been part of this community for close to 50 years. And so I'm looking forward to the visioning process. But hindsight, we look, and in our community we did effectively an 80-20 split, 80% single families and 20% multifamily. But as we began to grow, our original homes were single family ranch style homes, ground level, single story. And as we began to grow as a community, those single families morphed into 2-story units, etc. And as we continue to grow and become older, our senior population is scratching their head and looking at those stairs and going, I don't want those stairs. Yes. Okay, maybe some of us that are not that old don't want those stairs either. Yeah. And so, you know, many times you look back and you go, what was a really, really, really good decision as we were a younger community may not be quite the decision that we want it to be today, because we're seeing individuals, especially as we rent, they do not want to be upstairs. They do not want a walk-up unit. The younger families, yes, they can handle that. But our senior citizens, absolutely not. They do not want the stairs. Some of them are now looking at walkers. Some of them are wheelchairs. Some of them are simply saying, my knees are not going to handle those stairs anymore, and I really do not want to fall. So as we build down the road, those are some of the considerations that John's people are going to have to look at as we look at the zoning points and some of those changes, again, both from the rehabilitation and the new construction. So,
Doug, I don't know if it was you that said it in a previous panel, but we do have high rises here. They're just laying down on their side up Thousand Oaks Boulevard or something to that effect. Which is the world we live in, which is fine. I really like the idea of the this is the first time I heard about this vision process, and really appreciate you bringing that up, John. I think that's an important thing for all of us to look into. And you did say it was on the website. They get information on that?
Yes, if you go to the city's website, www.toaks.org, there'll be a link on the homepage to the visioning process. And the next meetings are coming up on May the 6th. All 5 groups meet on the same day at different locations, and they're all the evening of May the 6th from 6 to 8 p.m. The housing, as I mentioned, is going to be discussed out at the Municipal Service Center at the end of Rancho Conejo Boulevard.
And the community can contribute to that. Is that correct?
That's the whole idea. Visioning is kind of the beginning of a planning and implementation process, and it's getting everybody that has any potential interest in whatever the topic matter is, and essentially coming up with ideas of what they'd like that particular topic area to be like 50 years from now. Worked very well with our land use format with the development of our general plan in 1970. That really started with a community visioning process where everybody in town could come to the forums and say, well, I'd like that area to be open space, and I think we should put apartments over here, and we want to make it big enough so we can have a regional shopping center and help our institutions grow, such as Cal Lutheran University and our school and park systems, etc. So this is not the topic matter isn't land use, it's these other topic areas, but that's the focus is getting people's ideas and input to guide the future decisions the city will make in those areas.
That's great. Now, we've kind of defined what most people up here in this panel, these are all people involved in housing in our community. And I'm going to ask Connie, because she hasn't really said it. But Connie, you're a realtor, real estate agent, realtor. What do you do?
What do I do? Well, let's see. I laze around and I collect checks. I deposit them in the bank, and there you go. What do I do? I think that is such an open-ended question. I could go on for hours about what do I do. But I think if I could sum it up a little bit and crystallize it, I feel like a real estate agent is like the conductor in a symphony. You know, you come to a real estate agent and you say, I would like this. And the real estate agent is the person in charge of trying to see that it all happens. You know, we guide you to a lender, perhaps. We guide you to an insurance agent. We show you houses. We guide you. You want to know about pet services. We guide you to pet services. You want to know about rentals. We guide you to rentals. You want to know everything there is to know about the community. You want to know about the schools. We guide you there. We are the conductor. You ask the questions, and we help you find the answers. Real estate agents are not experts on every single thing that happens in a transaction. We certainly aren't experts on loans, and we're not experts on the schools. We are experts in a very, very small area. And what we do is we guide you, and we help you provide the answers. I think it's really important that there be trust between the real estate agent and the client. And I've heard negative things said about relationships between because it's not the right relationship. And I think if you're a buyer or you're a seller, you should follow your gut feeling about this person. Is this a person that I can trust? Is this a person I can work with? Is this a person I can tell the truth to? Is this a person who will tell me the truth? And I think based on that, and also what was said about experience, I think there is absolutely nothing that substitutes for experience. And I think if you're talking to an experienced person that your gut says, I can trust this person, then I think that's what you should do. Put your trust in that person and allow them to guide you through the process, whether that process is a month or a year, and it might be. What do? I stick with people for as long as it takes for them to be guided through the process.
Well, thank you. I knew you'd come through. I like that image of the conductor, a little baton and all that. So, and I can just imagine you doing that, Connie. So, I know how much you care about people. I know how much you care about your community and the people you work with.
Thank you.
I have about 10 more minutes here, and I would like to go starting with Steve and make sure everybody's covered everything that they feel that they need to and that they think the community would like to hear. Steve. A lender is I can't do that. Is a lender. He's with Wells Fargo locally. Can you just give us a wrap up?
Sure. Well, one thing I can tell you is when I started in this business, I came out of it after spending 4 years in the Army, and interest rates were 10.5% and 11%. That's where I started in this business. We're at 3 and 4% range. If you are interested in buying a home, if you're interested in seeing what it's going to take to buy a home, if you have just aspirations of getting into a home of, even if they're minute, start talking to somebody intelligently about it who can educate you. I am more of an educator today than I've ever been. I enjoy that part of it because I know if I help a client be educated, they can go out and buy confidently. And that's where, a great real estate agent and a great lender work together, because my job is to give them the confidence to jump in that car, go look at homes, and feel confident they can write an offer. And when that offer is accepted, be confident they can close on it, make the payment on it, and really enjoy the home. I mean, we all want home ownership for enjoyment. Yes, it's a great tax write-off if you need the tax write-off. But more than anything, it's about building, a future, building memories, and really enjoying life. And home ownership can be all of that if it's prepared for correctly. If it's not prepared for correctly, you will have some nights of crying, which is okay. We live and we learn. But if you can be educated up front to avoid as many of those pitfalls that are out there that are possible, then you're on the path to a happy home ownership, as I like to say. So I would just say rates are low. If you can get in, get in. If you can't get in today, find out how you can get in and what it's going to take to get there. And we'll get you there.
Connie, do you have something? Connie's a realtor in the Conejo Valley and past president, realtor. I think it's amiss if we do not mention that there's another past president in her office, Liz, whose last name I don't know anymore because it changed. Parvex. Yes, it was Polini Parvex. So I will mention that, duly mentioned. Connie, as a wrap-up and anything you think that we didn't cover.
I have learned a tremendous amount at this forum today. And I think I feel more grateful than ever that I live in a home in the Conejo Valley. I am bowled over by the amount of effort that is put into trying to get lower income housing for those who want to live here. And as I said, I am enormously grateful for those efforts. I think when I moved here, the Conejo Valley was not the high-end community that it is now. It was the place that my real estate agent directed me because my husband and I couldn't afford other areas. So it developed into what it is today. And I would like to suggest that if there are people who perhaps cannot afford the Conejo Valley now, that they can be directed to areas that might become like a Conejo Valley. I know that it's, as I mentioned, Wood Ranch. It certainly happened with Wood Ranch. Wood Ranch is now a high-end community, and 25 years ago that was not the case. So I see possibilities all over the place for buyers who cannot afford the Conejo Valley now, but maybe can afford other areas or come back to the Conejo. I'm upbeat. I see a positive future for us.
Thank you, Connie. Rick Schroeder is the president of Many Mansions, a great contributor to our community. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, Peter. Thank you for inviting me. I just kind of want to conclude by just talking a little bit about Many Mansions. You know, we're celebrating our 35-year anniversary this year. We were formed in 1979 by community members trying to address the high cost of housing that existed in Thousand Oaks in 1979, a problem that obviously still exists and is only growing. In 2008, our waiting list for our housing was 500 households. A household could be one person or family. As of last month, our waiting list is now 1,130 households. And over 60% are residents of Thousand Oaks, and the others are from Simi Valley, Agoura Hills, and East Ventura County. But a typical person on our household, or a typical person on our waiting list, is a single female head of household with children who is extremely low income or very low income and is under the threat of being homeless. So that is our typical person on our waiting list and our typical resident, a female head of household with children. And it's something that we not only provide the housing for our residents, what I haven't talked about is all the various service programs that we provide for their children. An after-school tutoring program, summer camp program, working with the homeless families and trying to get back into the community and into the job market. And I have to say, you know, we are well supported in the community. We receive a lot of community support, not only for our housing, but our programs, through donations, through volunteers, through in-kind donations, backpacks, school supplies, furniture, different things like that. So for those that are out there that want to get involved with Many Mansions, we could really use your help. Just give us a call, check out our website or Facebook page, give me a call, because I think it's an organization and it's a cause that I think that certainly needs your assistance, and I think is really serving our community very well. So thank you, and thank you for inviting me to this forum.
Rick, if you don't mind, what is your website? Would you mind letting everybody know?
Yeah, our website is just very easy, www.manymansions.org. So it's manymansions.org.
Great. Thank you very much. Doug Tapking is the Executive Director of the Area Housing Authority of the County of Ventura. How are you doing?
Good. Once again, it's an interesting time. I think as you've heard today, housing in the Conejo Valley is a broad spectrum from high income to very low income. And as an agency, we are actively involved in providing housing for that lower income segment. But it's interesting to note that as a result, we work with all of the entities all across the spectrum, from our high-income individuals to our low-income, because everybody knows somebody who needs housing. It's interesting to hear Rick talk about his waiting list expanding to, over 1,000 individuals. Ours has been over 1,000 for the past 15 years, rapidly approaching several thousand. I'm not sure I'm going to say that's good news. It just means it's a long time. It's not easy to get. It takes a long time. It's limited supplies, and what else is out there is many times not so much affordable. If you want additional information about the Area Housing Authority, the website is ahacv.org, ahacv.org. Please check it out. Take a look. It does point and give you links to various entities that are out there for other information. We're pleased to be a part of this program, and we'll continue to do so. Thanks.
Great, thank you. John Prescott is the Director of Community Development, City of Thousand Oaks. I'm really, really glad at how much you've had to contribute to us today, and I hope we've covered everything you think we should, but if we haven't, please let us know.
Well, instead of a few closing words, I want to give you a few closing numbers that help illustrate the dimensions of housing in Thousand Oaks. And I will refer to the housing element of the city's general plan. It's recently completed, and it's available on the city's website. If you navigate to the Community Development Department, Planning Division, we have a number of our general plan documents there, including the housing element. But median age of the city of Thousand Oaks is 41.5 years, average median age. The county figure is 36.2 years, and the national figure, I suspect, is probably in the little under 35, would be my guess. Household composition. What percentage of the households in Thousand Oaks do you think are comprised of a family with children under 18?
25%.
Oh, you're sharper than I thought you were. It's actually 33%. But consider Thousand Oaks was built as a family community in the country, and in the old days, maybe it would have been 60, 70%. Right now, it's 33%. We have, of our housing stock, 73% are owner-occupied, which is a very high rate. The other 27% are rented. Median household income, and all this data is from the 2010 census, unless otherwise stated. We have the second highest median income in the county at $98,000 median household income. The highest is Moorpark with almost $102,000. A lot of new subdivisions out there. Housing by type, 66% of our housing stock is single-family detached homes, an individual home on an individual lot. 2%, I'm sorry, 68%. 2% is mobile homes, and the other 30% are multifamily, either condominiums or apartments. And the age of our housing stock, I don't have the median age figure, but in the housing element we list by decades. And the decade in which most of our housing units were built was the 1970s. Roughly a third of the housing stock in Thousand Oaks, 30% actually, 31%, was built during the 1970s. And the 60s, another 21%. So we're coming up on some aging 40 or 50-year-old subdivisions in the next decade or so, and that presents some planning challenges in maintaining that stock.
That's great. I want to first thank all the panelists for being here. I'm going to go back through them again. John Prescott, who is the director for the community development for the city of Thousand Oaks. Then Doug Tapking. Doug Tapking is the area housing authority of the county of Ventura, executive director. Thank you, Doug. Rick Schroeder. Rick Schroeder is from Many Mansions. He's the head of Many Mansions as far as I'm concerned, and maybe a director or whatever. Connie Reed. Connie Reed is a realtor in the Conejo Valley, past president, realtor of the year. Very glad to have you with us. And Steve Lender, and Steve is with Wells Fargo Bank. I appreciate your being here. My name is Peter Greer, and on behalf of the City of Thousand Oaks, the Conejo Valley Simi Conejo Moorpark Valley something Association of Realtors. I'm very proud to be a realtor, and I'm glad that you're all here, and thank you all very much.